House Speaker Mike Johnson is refusing to back down from his strategy of keeping the House out of session until Senate Democrats vote to end the government shutdown. But one GOP lawmaker is bucking the party line. Congressman Kevin Kiley of California is one of a few GOP lawmakers still showing up to work in Washington. He's also been very critical of Johnson's handling of the shutdown, believing Republicans should be in Washington negotiating a solution rather than staying on hiatus in their districts. But Johnson isn't budging, as Congress will likely be out of session for a fourth consecutive week. Watch here.
I hereby designate the period from Tuesday, October 7th, 2025 through Monday, October 13th, 2025 as a district work period.
From Tuesday, October 14th, 2025 through Sunday, October 19th, 2025 as a district work period from Monday, October 20th, 2025 through Sunday, October 26th, 2025 as a district work period. Signed sincerely, Mike Johnson.
Republican.
Okay, so Mike Johnson's speakership is literally imploding right before our eyes, and I'm talking about a complete and total meltdown of Republican leadership on Capitol Hill. The House Speaker, the guy who's supposed to be steering the GOP through one of the most turbulent periods in modern political history, is now watching his own party tear itself apart in screaming matches, walkouts, and threats that will make a reality TV show look tame. And the crazy part? This isn't happening behind closed doors anymore. This is GOP chaos playing out in public on the House floor with the entire country watching. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Terms and ideas that were expressed in that thread. I do think that it points to, and I'm not sure that I would say this is, endemic to one party or the other, but to the need to have greater civic education in this country, and for those of us in elected office to set a better example. I mean, we've seen, for many, many years now, the level of political division in this country has gotten alarmingly high. The temperature has continued to be dialed up in terms of the rhetoric. And so, and it just seems to keep getting worse and worse every year. And, the government shutdown is part of this. This is sort of like the ultimate manifestation of excessive partisanship. And so I do think it's incumbent on all of us to try to set a better example and try to find more common ground that we should all share as Americans.
Were you not alarmed, though, that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, called the people in this chat kids? Seemed to downplay the seriousness of what was discovered here?
I didn't see his remarks, and I don't know to what extent.
You didn't see them? I think everybody's seen them.
I don't know specifically what he said, but I myself absolutely condemn the remarks in that thread and the ideas.
Do you consider 20 and 30-year-olds children? Because the Vice President called them kids.
I don't know that I consider someone who's a 30-year-old to be a child, no.
That's helpful.
Under the law, either, probably. Congressman Kevin Kiley,
Thanks, Congressman.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Here's what's going down. Mike Johnson thought he could hold the Republican Party together through sheer force of will and careful political maneuvering. He thought he could balance the MAGA hardliners who demand absolute loyalty to Trump with the moderates who are desperately trying to save their political careers by distancing themselves from the legal dumpster fire that is Trump world right now. Turns out, he was dead wrong. The GOP is fracturing in real time, and Johnson's authority has been reduced to basically nothing as Republicans openly defy him, challenge him, and plot to replace him. The spark that lit this firestorm? New subpoenas and revelations about January 6th have forced every Republican to make a choice. Do you stick with Trump and defend him no matter what the evidence shows? Or do you try to save yourself, distance yourself from the growing legal disaster, and hope voters don't punish you for your years of Trump loyalty? And here's the problem. There's no middle ground anymore. The evidence is too damning. The legal pressure is too intense. You're either all in with Trump or you're getting out. And that divide is ripping the Republican Party apart at the seams. Can you believe this? We're watching actual screaming matches on the House floor between Republican members, not just disagreements, not just heated debates, but full-on shouting matches where members are getting in each other's faces, calling each other traitors, questioning each other's loyalty to the party. Sources inside the Capitol describe it as total meltdown, with leadership scrambling to regain control and failing miserably. Johnson's trying to play peacemaker, trying to find common ground, but there is no common ground when one faction believes Trump is being persecuted and another faction realizes Trump probably committed serious crimes. The closed-door GOP meetings have been even worse. Multiple sources report walkouts, with moderate Republicans storming out when hardliners demand unanimous defense of Trump. There are reports of physical confrontations being narrowly avoided. There are threats of leadership challenges, with some Republicans openly discussing whether Johnson needs to be replaced with someone who can actually control the conference. Think about that for a second. Johnson's been speaker for barely long enough to get comfortable, and his own party is already plotting to get rid of him because he can't manage the civil war erupting within Republican ranks. And the catalyst for all of this? Congressional committees have ramped up their demands for sworn testimony from Trump allies. We're talking about subpoenas for Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, Mark Meadows, and basically everyone who was involved in the attempts to overturn the 2020 election. These aren't requests anymore. These are legal demands backed by the threat of contempt charges. And Republicans have to decide whether they're going to support these investigations or obstruct them. That decision is splitting the party into bitter warring factions that can't even be in the same room without erupting into chaos. Come on, you know what this means for Johnson's ability to actually govern? The House is supposed to pass legislation, conduct oversight, represent the American people. Instead, it's become a battleground where Republicans are fighting each other instead of Democrats. Nothing's getting done. Bills aren't moving. The legislative calendar is in shambles. And Johnson standing there supposedly in charge while his conference tears itself apart and he's powerless to stop it. Veteran GOP strategists are being brutally honest in their assessments. They're describing the Republican Party as fractured, disorganized, and leaderless. They're saying that neither Johnson nor any other potential leader currently commands respect across the party divide. The MAGA hardliners don't trust anyone who isn't willing to burn everything down for Trump. The moderates don't trust anyone who isn't willing to burn everything down for Trump. And Johnson's caught in the middle, trusted by neither side, respected by neither side, and watching his speakership collapse under the weight of Republican infighting. And then there's the Marjorie Taylor Greene situation, which has thrown gasoline on an already raging fire. MTG, one of Trump's most vocal and loyal supporters, has publicly broken with Trump on key issues and is threatening Johnson's leadership. That's huge. If even Marjorie Taylor Greene is willing to defy Trump and challenge leadership, it signals to other Republicans that rebellion is not only acceptable, but potentially rewarded. It's emboldened others to rebel, to speak out, to push back against both Trump and Johnson. The coalition that was supposed to be rock solid is crumbling, and the cracks are widening every single day. The fundamental problem, the thing that makes this unsolvable for Johnson, is that the two factions want completely opposite things. The hardliners want absolute Trump loyalty. They want Republicans to fight every subpoena, attack every prosecutor, defend Trump no matter what evidence emerges. The moderates want self-preservation. They want to distance themselves from potential criminal conduct. They want to show voters they care about the rule of law and democratic norms. Those positions are mutually exclusive. You can't do both. And Johnson's trying to please both sides, which means he's pleasing no one, and his authority is evaporating. So buckle up, because this Capitol firestorm isn't dying down, it's spreading. We're going to break down exactly how the GOP got here, why Johnson's completely lost control, and what happens next as Republicans face the prospect of losing not just their majority, but their entire party identity. This is the story of a political party in complete collapse, and we're watching it happen in real time. Let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about how Mike Johnson got into this impossible position, because understanding the dynamics here is crucial to seeing why this is only going to get worse. Johnson became speaker under incredibly difficult circumstances. The previous speaker got ousted after a rebellion from the MAGA wing of the party. Johnson was supposed to be the compromise candidate, the guy who could bridge the divide between hardliners and moderates. Turns out that was an impossible task from day one, and now the consequences of that impossibility are playing out in spectacular fashion. Johnson's entire strategy has been based on the idea that he could keep both factions happy by giving them each a little of what they want. He'd throw the hardliners some red meat by attacking Democrats and defending Trump in speeches. Then he'd quietly work with moderates on actual legislation and try to present a somewhat reasonable face to the American public. It was a delicate balancing act, and for a while, it kind of worked. But then the legal pressure on Trump intensified. Mark Meadows flipped, new evidence emerged, and suddenly there was no more room for nuance or balance. You had to pick a side, and Johnson's refusal to pick a side has made him irrelevant to both. The MAGA hardliners, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Matt Gaetzes of the world, they see Johnson as weak. They think he should be using every tool at his disposal to protect Trump, to obstruct investigations, to fight back against what they see as political persecution. They want him to shut down the House, refuse to cooperate with any investigations, maybe even try to defund special counsel operations. They want total war, and Johnson's not willing to give them that. So they see him as a traitor, someone who's not loyal enough to Trump, someone who needs to be replaced with a true believer who will actually fight. The moderates have a completely different problem with Johnson. They see him as too close to Trump, too willing to defend the indefensible, too reluctant to stand up for basic democratic principles. They want him to allow investigations to proceed, to respect the rule of law, to distance the party from Trump's legal problems. They're worried about 2026, about losing their seats because voters are sick of Republican chaos and Trump drama. They need Johnson to help them present a reasonable alternative to Democrats, and Johnson's not giving them that either. So they see him as a liability, someone who's going to drag them down in the midterms. Can you believe this? Johnson's trying to thread a needle that doesn't exist. He's trying to satisfy people who want completely opposite things. And the result is that he satisfies no one, and both factions are now openly discussing replacing him. The screaming matches on the House floor are just a visible manifestation of a much deeper problem. Republicans fundamentally disagree about what their party should be, about whether Trump is an asset or a liability, about whether loyalty to Trump is more important than electoral survival. Let's talk about the specific incidents that have made this crisis visible to everyone. During a recent House session, Republicans got into a shouting match over whether to support a resolution backing Trump against what they call political prosecution. The hardliners wanted unanimous support. The moderates wanted to at least acknowledge that investigations might be legitimate. The debate got so heated that the speaker had to gavel down his own party members and call a recess. Think about that. Johnson had to shut down proceedings because his own party couldn't stop screaming at each other. That's not a functioning political party. That's a disaster waiting to happen. The closed-door GOP conference meetings have been even more dramatic. Multiple members have described scenes of total chaos. Hardliners accusing moderates of being rhinos, Republicans in name only, and traitors to the MAGA movement. Moderates firing back that the hardliners are cult members who care more about Trump than about the country. People walking out mid-meeting, threats being made, Johnson standing at the front of the room, trying to maintain order, and being completely ignored by both sides. These aren't the meetings of a unified political party. These are the meetings of a coalition that's already broken, but hasn't officially admitted it yet. And the subpoena situation is making everything worse. Congressional committees, energized by Mark Meadows' cooperation and the evidence he provided, are going after everyone in Trump's orbit. Rudy Giuliani, who helped devise the fake elector scheme, got hit with a subpoena demanding he testify about his role in the conspiracy. Steve Bannon, who's already facing criminal charges for contempt, is getting subpoenaed again for his role in organizing January 6. Mark Meadows, despite his cooperation, is being called back for additional testimony about areas he might have glossed over in his initial interviews. The list goes on, and every new subpoena forces Republicans to take a position. Do you support these investigations or not? It's a simple question with huge political implications. Say you support the investigations, and the MAGA base will primary you. Say you oppose the investigations, and moderate voters will abandon you in the general election. There's no winning position, and Johnson can't give Republicans cover because any position he takes will enrage one faction or the other. So Republicans are left to fend for themselves, making whatever decision they think will best protect their political future, and those divergent decisions are tearing the conference apart. Come on, think about what this means for actual governance. The House is supposed to pass budgets, authorize programs, conduct oversight of the executive branch. Instead, it's spending all its time and energy on internal Republican warfare. Democrats are laughing, literally laughing, as they watch Republicans self-destruct. The legislative agenda is stalled because Johnson can't get his own party to agree on anything. Committee hearings are turning into partisan circuses because Republican members can't present a united front. The House's reputation, already damaged by years of dysfunction, is hitting new lows because the majority party can't even pretend to have its act together. The Marjorie Taylor Greene factor deserves special attention because it's so significant. MTG was supposed to be one of Trump's most reliable allies, someone who would defend him no matter what, who would attack anyone who questioned him, who would never break ranks. But even she's reached a breaking point on certain issues. She's publicly criticized some of Trump's positions. She's threatened to challenge Johnson's leadership if he doesn't move in her preferred direction on policy. And most importantly, she's shown other Republicans that defying Trump doesn't result in immediate political death. That's a huge psychological shift for a party that's been built on absolute Trump loyalty for the past several years. Other Republicans are watching the MTG situation and realizing that maybe, just maybe, they don't have to be in lockstep with Trump all the time. Maybe they can carve out positions that differ from Trump's without being immediately primary and destroyed. That realization is emboldening more rebellion, more dissent, more willingness to publicly break with Trump and the MAGA agenda. And for Johnson, that means his job gets even harder because he can't count on Trump loyalty to keep the conference in line anymore. The glue that held the party together is dissolving, and Johnson has no replacement adhesive to offer. Veteran GOP strategists are being remarkably candid about how bad things are. Off the record, they're saying the party is in the worst shape they've seen in their careers. They're saying there's no obvious path back to unity. They're saying that the fundamental split between MAGA hardliners and everyone else is probably permanent. And the only question is whether the party breaks apart formally or continues to limp along as a dysfunctional coalition. Some are even suggesting that a party split might be healthy in the long run, allowing both factions to pursue their vision without being held back by the other. But in the short term, they acknowledge it would be catastrophic for Republican electoral prospects. And the 2026 midterms are looming large in everyone's calculations. Republicans currently hold a narrow majority in the House, but that majority is vulnerable. Democrats only need to flip a few seats to take back control. And every day of Republican chaos, every public screaming match, every story about GOP infighting makes those seats more vulnerable. Republican candidates in competitive districts are panicking, begging leadership to get control of the conference, to stop the public displays of dysfunction that are giving Democrats endless ammunition for campaign ads. But Johnson can't give them what they want because he doesn't have control, and everyone knows it. Are you kidding me? We're watching a major political party completely fall apart in real time. The Speaker of the House, supposedly one of the most powerful positions in American government, has been reduced to a figurehead with no real authority over his own conference. Republicans are fighting each other instead of Democrats. The legislative process is paralyzed, and the 2026 elections are shaping up to be a disaster for the GOP because voters are watching this chaos and concluding that Republicans can't govern. Okay, so let's break down what happens next, because this situation is only going to escalate from here. Mike Johnson's speakership is on life support, and the GOP's internal civil war is entering a new, more dangerous phase. The consequences of this breakdown are going to reshape American politics in ways we're only beginning to understand. First, the immediate crisis for Johnson. He's got to get through the rest of the legislative session without losing a vote of no confidence or facing a formal leadership challenge. That means he's going to be walking on eggshells, trying not to antagonize either faction too much, trying to keep the House functioning at a basic level. But here's the problem. Every decision he makes is going to anger someone. Every vote he schedules, every committee assignment he makes, every statement he releases, it's all going to be scrutinized by both factions, looking for evidence that he's favoring the other side. The budget process is going to be an absolute nightmare. Republicans have to pass funding bills to keep the government running, but the hardliners want to use the budget as leverage to fight Trump's battles, maybe by defunding special counsel operations or blocking money for agencies they think are persecuting Trump. The moderates want clean funding bills that show Republicans can govern responsibly. Those positions are incompatible, and Johnson's going to have to choose. If he sides with the hardliners, he'll need Democratic votes to pass anything, which will enrage the hardliners even more. If he sides with the moderates, the hardliners will revolt and possibly try to oust him. There's no win and move, just different ways to lose. The committee investigation situation is going to intensify. With Mark Meadows' cooperation and the evidence he provided, congressional committees have roadmaps for dozens of additional investigations. They know who to subpoena, they know what documents to request, they know what questions to ask, and they're going to pursue all of it aggressively because they finally have the ammunition they need to get real answers. For Johnson, this means constant battles over whether to support these investigations, whether to use House resources to help or hinder them, whether to allow public hearings that will put more pressure on Trump and his allies. Every decision is a political minefield. Can you believe the position Republicans are in right now? They control the House, which should give them significant power to set the agenda and investigate the Biden administration. Instead, they're spending all their time fighting internal battles and dealing with investigations into their own party's conduct. Democrats don't even have to do anything. They can just sit back and watch Republicans destroy themselves. It's political malpractice on a scale we rarely see, and it's happening because the party can't reconcile its Trump worship with the reality of Trump's legal problems. The 2026 midterm implications are huge and getting bigger every day. Republican candidates in competitive districts are looking at the chaos in Washington and realizing they're going to have to distance themselves from the national party to have any chance of winning. They're going to have to run as independents who just happen to have an R next to their name, promising voters they'll be different from the dysfunctional mess in D.C., but that strategy has limits, especially when the dysfunction is being broadcast on national news every single day. Voters in swing districts don't draw fine distinctions between local Republicans and national Republicans when they see the entire party melting down, and the MAGA base is going to punish anyone who distances themselves from Trump. Republican candidates who try to appeal to moderates by criticizing Trump or separating themselves from his legal problems are going to face primary challenges from Trump-endorsed candidates. We're already seeing this dynamic play out in early 2026 races, with multiple incumbents facing well-funded primary opponents who accuse them of being insufficiently loyal to Trump. The Republican Party is facing a situation where candidates who can win primaries can't win general elections, and candidates who can win general elections can't win primaries. That's a recipe for electoral disaster. Come on, think about the long-term implications here. The Republican Party is going through what political scientists call a realignment. The coalition that elected Trump in 2016 and supported him through his first presidency is breaking apart under the weight of his legal problems and his refusal to moderate his behavior. What comes next is anyone's guess. Does the party fully embrace MAGA and become a Trump personality cult, accepting that it might become a permanent minority party? Does it reject Trump and try to rebuild around more traditional conservative principles, accepting that it will lose the MAGA base? Does it split into two separate parties, with MAGA Republicans and traditional Republicans running separate candidates? All of those options are on the table right now, and Johnson's inability to hold the party together is accelerating the timeline for when Republicans will have to make a choice. The status quo, trying to keep everyone in the same tent, is becoming unsustainable. Something has to give, and when it does, the political landscape is going to look very different than it does now. The international implications are also significant. America's allies are watching this chaos and wondering whether the U.S. is capable of stable governance. When the majority party in the House of Representatives can't even agree on basic positions, how can the U.S. be a reliable partner on international issues? How can American promises mean anything when the government is paralyzed by internal dysfunction? America's adversaries are exploiting this chaos for propaganda purposes. They're pointing to Republican infighting as evidence that democracy doesn't work, that American-style governance is inherently unstable. They're using footage of Republicans screaming at each other on the House floor to recruit supporters and justify authoritarian systems. The damage to American soft power is real and growing, and Mike Johnson, sitting at the center of this storm, is powerless to stop any of it. He can't unite his conference. He can't make the legal problems go away. He can't force Republicans to prioritize governance over internal warfare. The media narrative is working against Republicans in a major way. Every story about GOP infighting reinforces the idea that Republicans can't govern. Every clip of Republicans screaming at each other becomes a Democratic campaign ad. Every quote from a Republican strategist bemoaning the party's dysfunction confirms voter concerns about Republican competence. Johnson can't control the narrative because the dysfunction is real and visible. You can't spin your way out of members of your own party openly calling for your removal. You can't message your way past screaming matches on the House floor. The impact on policy is equally devastating. Important legislation is getting stalled because Republicans can't agree on anything. Budget bills are held hostage to internal party battles. Oversight functions are compromised because committee Republicans can't coordinate their efforts. The House is supposed to be one of the most important institutions in American democracy, a place where the people's representatives debate and decide the direction of the country. Instead, it's become a circus where one party fights itself while the other party watches in amazement. Let's talk about what this means for Trump himself. In a weird way, the GOP chaos is both helping and hurting him. It's helping because the party's dysfunction distracts from his legal problems and makes it harder for any unified Republican response to emerge against him. But it's hurting because the chaos is a direct result of his legal troubles, and it's making more Republicans question whether continued loyalty to Trump is worth the political cost. Some Republicans are starting to do the math and realizing that defending Trump might cost them their careers, while distancing from Trump might only cost them a primary challenge that they could potentially survive. Are you kidding me? The fundamental question facing Republicans is whether they're a political party or a personality cult. If they're a political party, they need to be able to function without Trump, to articulate policies beyond Trump worship, to win elections based on ideas rather than just loyalty to one man. But if they're a personality cult, they need to accept the consequences of that, including potential permanent minority status and continued chaos whenever Trump faces legal or political challenges. So where does all this leave us? Mike Johnson is presiding over a party in complete collapse. The GOP is tearing itself apart over Trump, over investigations, over what it means to be a Republican in 2025. Johnson has no authority to stop it. He has no strategy that can unite the warring factions. He has no external events that might force temporary unity. He's just holding on day by day, hoping he can make it through without losing his position, knowing that even if he keeps his title, his actual power is essentially zero. The Capitol firestorm isn't dying down. It's getting worse with each passing day. More subpoenas are coming. More evidence is emerging. More Republicans are going to have to choose between Trump loyalty and self-preservation, and every one of those choices is going to deepen the divisions that are already tearing the party apart. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Johnson's speakership might not survive the next few months. The Republican Party might not survive the next few years in its current form, and American democracy is watching one of its two major parties completely melt down in real time. This is history being made, and it's going to reshape politics for a generation. Mike Johnson is stunned, the GOP is tearing itself apart, and there's no end in sight to the chaos engulfing Capitol Hill.